It is early 2026. The snow is falling on the Donbas steppes for the fourth winter in a row. And inside Russia, a voice has emerged from the military community that is saying the quiet part out loud. This is Ivan Otrakovsky. He is a Russian officer, a veteran, and a member of the Officers' Assembly. For years, Western analysts have argued that Russia's invasion was a strategic blunder. But Otrakovsky argues something far darker. He claims it was not a blunder at all. He claims it was a setup. In a viral address that has shaken the patriotic wing of the Russian internet, Otrakovsky alleges that the war in Ukraine was never intended to be won. He calls it a slaughter designed by hucksters and politicians, an internal enemy that has turned the Russian army into a source of profit, sacrificing over 1 million men not for victory, but for a perpetual stalemate. Today, we are going to break down his explosive claims. We are going to look at the reality of the front lines in January 2026, from the ruins of Pokrovsk to the meat grinders of Zaporizhzhia, to ask the terrifying question: is he right? Is the strategic failure of the Russian military actually a feature, not a bug? To understand Otrakovsky's anger, you have to go back to his first major point, the lost chance of 2014. Otrakovsky argues that the true betrayal did not start in 2022. He says it began 12 years ago, when the Russian military could have taken the entire Donbas, and perhaps much more, without a fight. He is referring to the chaotic spring of 2014. At that time, the Ukrainian army was disorganized, and pro-Russian sentiment in the east was at its peak. But instead of advancing, the Kremlin stopped. They signed the Minsk agreements. They liquidated the independent field commanders of the Donbas. For 8 years, the conflict was frozen. Otrakovsky calls this conscious state treason. Why? Because it gave Ukraine 8 years to build fortifications, to train with NATO, and to prepare an army that would eventually kill hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers. Fast forward to today, January 2026. We are approaching the 4-year mark of what was supposed to be a 3-day operation. Otrakovsky points out a brutal historical comparison. In 4 years, the Soviet Union went from the brink of defeat in 1941 to storming Berlin in 1945. Today, the Russian army is celebrating the capture of a single street in a ruined industrial town. The contrast is humiliating. And according to Otrakovsky, it is intentional. The hucksters in charge do not want a decisive victory. They want a process, a profitable, endless process. Let's look at the data. Does the situation on the ground in 2026 support Otrakovsky's theory of a slaughter masquerading as a war? As of this month, the casualty reports are staggering. Intelligence estimates suggest total Russian casualties, killed and wounded, have surpassed 1 million. Throughout 2025, the Russian military shifted tactics. They stopped using large armored columns, which were too vulnerable to drones, and switched to what Otrakovsky calls tactical wins, small-scale infantry assaults. In the West, they call these meat waves, or infiltration tactics. The result? In 2025, Russia captured approximately 5,600 square kilometers of territory. That sounds like a lot until you realize it is less than 1% of Ukraine. Take the city of Pokrovsk. For over a year, this has been the primary objective. Thousands of men have died for every kilometer of advance. As of January, Russian forces control about 67% of the city. They have leveled it to the ground. They call it a victory. Otrakovsky calls it blurring out strategic non-victory with tactical wins. Even these wins are fragile. Just last month, in December 2025, Ukrainian forces launched a counterattack and retook parts of Kupyansk, a city Russia had spent months trying to encircle. It is a pendulum of blood. One side takes a village, the other side takes it back. The lines on the map barely change, but the graveyards get full. Otrakovsky's critique hits hard here because he is a military man. He knows that taking a village means nothing if you lose a division to do it. He sees a strategy that maximizes casualties while minimizing movement, exactly what you would do if your goal was a slaughter, not a conquest. Who benefits? If the army is bleeding out, who is winning? Otrakovsky points the finger at the filthy oligarchy, the internal enemy. He claims that for the ruling class in Moscow, the war is simply a business model. This is a sentiment growing in the trenches. While soldiers die in the mud due to lack of rotation and ammunition, the Russian economy has ostensibly grown, fueled by massive military spending. Factories owned by oligarchs are churning out shells at triple the price. The elite are partying in Dubai while the mobilized men from Siberia are dying in Avdiivka. We've seen the purges. Generals arrested for bribery. Billions of rubles missing. Otrakovsky argues this isn't just corruption, it is the system. The war keeps the population distracted, the dissenters suppressed, and the money flowing. Victory would actually be a problem for them. Victory requires reconstruction, responsibility, and an end to the emergency powers. Perpetual war keeps them in power forever. But the most tragic part of Otrakovsky's message is not about tactics or money, it is about the future. For nationalists like him, the goal was always the reunification of the Russian world, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus. They believed they were liberating their brothers. He admits defeat here. Not military defeat, but a spiritual defeat. He realizes that 4 years of bombing cities, destroying infrastructure, and killing hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians has made reunification impossible. The hatred is now too deep. The concept of Kievan Rus is dead, buried under the rubble of Mariupol and Kharkiv. By dragging out the war, the Kremlin has achieved the exact opposite of its stated goals. Ukraine is more anti-Russian than ever, NATO is stronger than ever, and Russia is bleeding out, destined to become a vassal of China, or, as Otrakovsky fears, play into the hands of the United States. Ivan Otrakovsky is asking the Russian people to wake up. He says the enemy is not just in Kyiv or Washington, it is in the offices of Moscow. As we move deeper into 2026 with no end in sight, his words hang heavy over the conflict. He says it was never about victory, it was about the slaughter. And looking at the frozen, blood-soaked fields of the Donbas today, it is getting harder and harder to prove him wrong. Thanks for watching. If you want to stay updated on the reality of the front lines, make sure to like and subscribe.